Namaste, my name is Janapati Das, and we are going to get back into our Krishna book reading again today. Please accept my respects, and let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual teacher, Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa, and of course His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has translated these Krishna stories and purported upon them. We are going to engage in the prime benediction for humanity at large, that is the hearing and repeating of Krishna's holy names. It is the love for Krishna is already inherent in the living entity, but is covered over by enviousness and material energy. By the chanting, repeating and chanting the names of Krishna, one can come to know their true identity and their true happiness. And it is the best benediction that we can engage in. So please join along. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Srimate Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine Bhajan Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Bhajan Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to our story. We were continuing in the chapter entitled Ill-Motivated Dhrtarastra. If you remember from last time, Akrura had been deputed by Krishna to go and visit his devotees, the Pandava brothers, to see how they were doing. Their uncle, Dhrtarastra, blind king, was persecuting them along with his sons, Dhrtarastra's sons, Duryodhana and the others. And so Akrura was trying to give good advice and that is the way of a devotee. Even in the presence of great demons, a devotee will advise, try to give some kind of spiritual knowledge. And a lot of times, not just a lot of times, in the situation, many atheists and personalists are very maybe materially intelligent, but not very spiritually intelligent. And so you try to teach them something, they may not hear it because of their enviousness covering their heart. But a devotee really tries to give them some little bit of wisdom that will help them spiritually come and let their heart melt for Krishna. Because that is a sickness. That is a sickness that Maya Devi actually inflicts upon the living entity. Not only does she make it so you deny the existence of God, because in your heart that's what you want, but she will also give you all the logic to make you believe, the denial of Krishna, and also say that it's me that's doing this. I'm in control. Even though you're very much like a puppet under Maya's strings and material energy, they will oftentimes mock, the religious person or spiritual person. Oh, this person is afraid of the dark, and they're like children in the dark, and they just make up this God that will protect them from death. But the fear of death is real. And if you don't know about what is going to happen, even if you believe that at the end of life, your existence will be nullified, that's a terrifying feeling when you're faced with death. And that illusion is shattered at the time of death. Or you watch the people that you love and everything that you've set up to try to take shelter of just come crumbling down. I realize I'm not on the Krishna, I'm on a different book here. I was like, oh, that doesn't look familiar. So yes, Krishna book reading. We are reading from the Ill-Motivated Dhrtarastra. Akrura continued, my dear Dhrtarastra, I beg to advise you not to be blind about the fact of this material existence. See? He's saying, you're blind, and also don't be blind about the reality of this material existence. You put your shelter in your family and your son in making really, really poor spiritual decisions by being weak with your son. Material conditional life, either in distress or in happiness, is to be accepted as a dream. What does that mean? That means that not that material life is an illusion in the sense that it's temporary, and the reality of thinking that this material world, this material body, our relationships that we set up, our families, our jobs, what everything we have that we've set up in this material world, in this particular body, will be permanent. And yet, even though people are oftentimes aware that, well, yeah, I won't have this forever, I won't have the good looks, I won't, my body won't be young forever, they mentally can be aware of that, but they still act on a platform of thinking that it's okay, everything is just going to be hunky-dory, our house will be there forever, not like, Jesus Christ would say, don't build your house on low tide, on the shore, because when the tide comes in, or when death comes in, everything is washed away. So here Akrura is trying to give good advice to He's saying that it can be accepted as a dream because those things that it's just temporary. The illusion is temporary. Sometimes impersonalists, not sometimes, but all the time, impersonalists will see the material world as an illusion of itself, as in it's not real. It's not real. It's not real. And there are actually a lot of different, sometimes so-called spiritual paths that will believe this, that this is not real. It's just Maya. The material energy is real. It's a real thing. It's just illusionary because it's temporary and it doesn't have satisfaction. You can't find satisfaction from it. You can't find any lasting happiness from it, and it's temporary. Sometimes there are also, Christian beliefs that it's not real. It's not real, but it is real. But it's like a dream. It's to be accepted like a dream. You're dreaming. When you're having a dream, you believe that, oh, yeah, that's real. But when the dream is over, you go back to realizing that the higher reality is that we're actually spiritual and we're temporarily in this material world in different lives. One should try to bring his mind and senses under control and live very peacefully for spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness. Straightforward. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that except for persons who are in Krishna consciousness, everyone is always in a disturbed condition of mind and is full of anxiety. So you can even hear in the story of Dhrtarastra, his mind is always in anxiety because he's like, all the way to the point of the Battle of Kurukshetra, he's still hoping that when things go bad for the Pandavas, there's situations in the battle where it seems that things are going to not be good for the Pandavas, but as Sanjaya tells Dhrtarastra at the beginning and end of the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, of course, that with Krishna there is only victory. You can, the Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where whoever is with him, no one can defeat. So time and time again, Dhrtarastra has this sort of underlying anxiety and fear of losing what he has, but he's kind of hoping, that things are going to go well. And so we have to also understand that we have no real power about how things go on in this material world. We may be planning things how we want them, but we have no power to say how they're going to turn out. And everybody is in a disturbed condition of mind and full of anxiety. That's literally what's going on in the world. People in anxiety, they are disturbed in their mind. They have no peace, no shelter, no happiness at all. And it's a superficial happiness. You see in the Instagram posts, people like, oh, I'm having a great time. And then deep down they're like, oh, And all the demons were like that. King Kamsa was in this disturbed condition and full of anxiety, always wondering when Krishna is going to come and get him. And, he was always thinking of that, always thinking of Krishna day in and day out. He'd keep trying to send out demons to try to stop him. And nothing could stop Krishna. And those devotees, the devotees of Krishna, nothing can stop the devotees of Krishna. There is nothing under the protection, under the umbrella, under the shelter of Govardhan Hill. Under Krishna's shelter, there is only safety and security. Without Krishna, without Krishna's shelter, that's where the anxiety and fear and disturbed mind comes. Even those who are trying for liberation or merging into the Brahman effulgence, or the yogis who are trying to achieve perfection and mystic power, cannot have peace of mind. So even these people on so-called spiritual paths, trying to merge with the Brahman effulgence or trying to obtain certain mystic powers or tricks, their mind is constantly disturbed and is easily just flipped. These yogis, you have these stories where people send like apsaras or, very, beautiful women to lure these yogis who are trying to attain certain kinds of spiritual perfection, and they're easily drawn away. But the devotee who is serving Krishna and who engages in Krishna consciousness, his mind is anchored. He cannot be taken away from Krishna. Pure devotees of Krishna have no demands to make of Krishna. They are simply satisfied with service to him. Actual peace and mental tranquility can be attained only in perfect Krishna consciousness. After hearing moral instructions from Akura, Dhrtarastra replied, "My dear Akura, you are very charitable in giving me good instructions, but unfortunately I cannot accept it." It's just like, very diplomatic, these kinds of statesmen. They're not very intelligent. They're just like, I recognize it's good intelligence, but I cannot accept it, A person who is destined to die does not utilize the effect of nectar, although it be administered to him. I can understand that your instructions are very valuable. Unfortunately, they do not stay in my flickering mind, just as the glittering lightning in the sky does not stay fixed in a cloud. I can understand only that no one can stop the onward progress of the Supreme Will. I can understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna has appeared in the family of the Yadus in order to decrease the overburdened load of this earth. Dhrtarastra gave, because of course as a king he had all these great spiritual advisors. Bhishma, even the military kings of Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Vidura was a pure devotee, the brother of Dhrtarastra. People were always, saints and sages were always seeing the king and trying to give him advice. But he couldn't take it. He was too attached to his son. And he was, in the reality of Dhrtarastra, he was not completely, like as black as his son Duryodhana, in the heart. Duryodhana just did not take any good advice at all because he was completely envious. And incidentally, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, after the Battle of Kurukshetra and all the kings, something like 640 million people were killed. All of his sons were killed, all of his grandsons. I mean, it was basically a huge slaughter of great heroes. And even then, Yudhishthira and the Pandavas in this story of the Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Mahabharata, they were real devotees. They were compassionate. They let their uncle stay as interim king, even though they were kind of really ruling the thing. And it finally, Dhrtarastra just kept living, even though all of his sons were killed, and he was just still living as a king in his mind, this sort of material attachment. And he started getting older and older and older. And there's a story, of course, of Vidura, coming again and saying, "What are you doing? Don't you look at yourself? Look at yourself. You're an invalid. You're an invalid. Your body is falling apart, and the only reason when you haven't been thrown out is because Yudhishthira is so godly, and he let you just stay here." He said you should be leaving and going to the forest and giving up all attachment and focusing on Krishna, in meditation. You should go. And finally, something got through in this story, and Dhrtarastra had a realization of like everything that he'd done wrong. Immediately and without anything, he got up. Even his Queen Gandharva, not Gandharva, but Gandhini. I'm trying to remember her name. Anyway, she was the one who was also blindfolded herself, and she had actually, because her husband was blind, she blindfolded herself, and she'd obtained all these mystic powers. But they all left to the forest in the middle of the night, and had that realization that what they are living off of is not going to last. They should be focusing their time. And the point of that, of course, was that you should be focusing your time. You have economic development and sense gratification in this material world. Kind of comes with the package. You do need to do it in the material world, but the reality is the focus should be on your spiritual life, cultivation of Krishna consciousness in your life, so that the time of death, which you don't know when it comes, you will be prepared to leave. So this is this point later in the Srimad Bhagavatam where with Vidura finally tells, you should be getting out of here. And for once in his life, Dhrtarastra actually took advice from a spiritual teacher, his brother, and left. Dhrtarastra gave, okay, so he says, Dhrtarastra gave hints to Akrura that he had complete faith in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, he was very much partial to his family members. So that was the point I was saying, is that he had some intelligence, but not enough faith in Krishna to detach himself from his family. So he was completely controlled by this desire of this familial relations. In the very near future, Krishna would vanquish all the members of his family, and in a helpless condition, Dhrtarastra would take shelter of Krishna's feet. There we go, that's the story. In order to show his special favor to a devotee, Krishna usually takes away all the objects of his material affection. He thus forces the devotee to be materially helpless, with no alternative than to accept the lotus feet of Krishna. This actually happened to Dhrtarastra after the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Dhrtarastra could realize two opposing factors acting before him. He could understand that Krishna was there to remove all the unnecessary burdens of the world. His sons were an unnecessary burden, and so he expected that they would be killed. At the same time, he could not rid himself of his unlawful affection for his sons. Understanding these two contradictory factors, he began to offer his respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The contradictory ways of material existence are very difficult to understand. They can only be taken as the inconceivable execution of the plan of the Supreme, who by his inconceivable energy creates this material world and enters into it and sets into action the three modes of nature. When everything is created, he enters into each and every living entity and into the smallest atom. No one can understand the incalculable plans of the Supreme Lord. After hearing this statement, Akrura could clearly understand that Dhrtarastra was not going to change his policy of discriminating against the Pandava in favor of his sons. He at once took leave of his friends in Hastinapura and returned to his home in the kingdom of the Yadus. After returning home, he vividly informed Lord Krishna and Balaram of the actual situation in Hastinapura and the intentions of Dhrtarastra. Akrura was sent to Hastinapura by Krishna to study. By the grace of the Lord, he was successful and informed Krishna about the actual situation. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 48th chapter of Krishna, ill-motivated Dhrtarastra. So, this is an example also of the service that is one can rendering service to Krishna or to the devotee of Krishna. Sevan Mukhe, that's the rendering service. It is the key element. Rendering service to your spiritual master, rendering service to Krishna is the same. And without the rendering of service to your Gurudev or to Krishna or to the devotee of Krishna, one cannot have the seed of devotion given by the spiritual master. So the spiritual master will give you that seed of devotion and when you're rendering service, and then it is your job to cultivate that seed of devotion. And one of the ways you do it is by rendering service. One of the key ways of rendering service is the hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, one of many, but the most important, which we will do at the end. But I'm going to go ahead and continue reading into the next chapter because we're early into this video. So this is chapter 49. Krishna erects the Dwarka fort. Ooh, now we're getting exciting. Dwarka. After his death, Kamsa's two wives became widows. According to Vedic civilization, a woman is never independent. She has 3 stages in her life. In childhood, a woman should live under the protection of her father. A youthful woman should live under the protection of her young husband. And in the event of the death of her husband, she should live either under the protection of her grown-up children, or if she has no grown-up children, she must go back to her father and live as a widow under his protection. It appears that Kamsa had no grown-up sons. After becoming widows, his wives returned to the shelter of their father. Kamsa had 2 queens. One was Ashti, and the other was Prapti, and both happened to be the daughters of King Jartsanda. Okay, yet another demon is introduced. One of the many demons that was causing problems on the earth, but actually Krishna had not yet killed him. The lord of the Bihar province, known in those days as Magadharaj, After reaching home, both queens explained their awkward position following Kamsa's death. The king of Magadha, Jartsand, was mortified on hearing their pitiable condition due to the slaughter. When informed of the death of Kamsa, Jartsand decided on the spot that he would rid the world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. He decided that since Krishna had killed Kamsa, the whole dynasty of the Yadus should be killed. He began to make extensive arrangements to attack the kingdom of Mathura with his innumerable military phalanxes, consisting of many thousands of chariots, horses, elephants, and infantry soldiers. Jartsand prepared 13 such military phalanxes in order to retaliate the death of Kamsa. Taking with him all his military strength, he attacked the capital of the Yadu kings, Mathura, surrounding it from all directions. Excuse me. Sri Krishna, who appeared as an ordinary human being, saw the immense strength of Jartsand, which appeared as an ocean about to cover a beach at any moment. He also perceived that the inhabitants of Mathura were overwhelmed with fear. He began to think within himself about the situation of his mission as an incarnation and how to tackle the present situation before him. His mission was to diminish the overburdened population of the whole world. Therefore, he took the opportunity of facing so many men, chariots, elephants, and horses. The military strength of Jartsand appeared before him, and he decided to kill the entire force of Jartsand so that they would not be able to go back again and reorganize their military strength. While Lord Krishna was thinking in that way, 2 military chariots, fully equipped with drivers, weapons, flags, and other implements, arrived from him from outer space. Krishna saw the 2 chariots presented before him and immediately addressed his attendant brother Balaram, who is known as Shankarshan. My dear elder brother, you are the best among the Aryans. You are the Lord of the universe, and specifically you are the protector of the Yadu dynasty. Now, I just want to make a side thing, just in case you catch these words sometimes that historically have become perverted, like this word Aryan. You think about Aryan, you think about the Aryan race in Nazi Germany, and very unfortunately, the demon Hitler stole a lot of Vedic ideas, including the swastika, which was a spiritual symbol. If you actually study the swastika, you can see that the whole world was a Vedic kingdom, because the swastika appears in many in Native American, in East Europe, in India, in China, in so many places all around the world, Ireland, because that concept of the swastika came from the Vedic system, and the Vedic system was a world kingdom at one time. That's why it's all over the place. But Hitler saw it used it, flipped it around, and put it on his flag, and now people associate the swastika with evil, the evil of the Nazi Germans. And this concept of Aryan, Hitler saw the purpose of it, as the Aryan race as a white race, European, blonde hair, blue eyes, a superior race, and the dark Jewish race or the dark races were inferior races. But this is not what an Aryan race means. Basically, an Aryan race is a spiritual term. It means, it's not even a race. The Aryan people were known as the people who followed the Vedic system. In other words, or they followed a spiritual system where God was the center of your life, in which people were living spiritually godly lives, and where they were helping the brothers, and not this demonic self-centeredness of that we see in modern day, the modern day world in general. Just a very self-centered, selfish, materially based concept of I am the body, what I get is mine, I, me, mine. It's basically selfish. So an Aryan race is actually one who lives a very spiritual, or the Aryan peoples were the people who actually would follow the Vedic system, and that's what it meant. You are the best among the Aryans. You are the Lord of the universe. Specifically, you are the protector of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty sense great danger before the soldiers of Jartsand, and they are very much grieved. Just give them protection. Your chariot is also here, filled with military weapons. I request you to sit down on your chariot and kill all these soldiers. the entire military strength of the enemy. Naturally, both of us have descended on this earth just to annihilate such unnecessary bellicose forces and to give protection to the pious devotees. So we have the opportunity to fulfill our mission. Please let us execute it. Thus, Krishna and Balaram, the descendants of the Gada king Dhrtarastra, decided to annihilate the 13 military companies of Jarasandha. Krishna went upon the chariot of which Dhruta was the driver, and with a small army, so Dhruta is his chariot driver, and to the blowing of the conch shells, he came out of the city of Mathura. Curiously enough, although the other party was equipped with greater military strength, just after hearing the vibration of Krishna's conch shell, their hearts were shaken. The transcendental conch shell, right? When Jarasandha saw both Balaram and Krishna, he was a little bit compassionate because both Krishna and Balaram happened to be related to him as grandsons. He specifically addressed Krishna as Purushadam, meaning the lowest among men. Actually, Krishna is known in all Vedic literatures as Purushotam, the highest among men. Jarasandha had no intention of addressing Krishna as Purushottam, but great scholars have determined the true meaning of the word Purushottam to be one who makes all other personalities go downward. No one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is also to be known that when you're talking about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nothing is greater than Krishna. So even our feeble attempt with our little pea brains and little minds to try to comprehend or capture the concept of God, and because we can't do that with our mind in our attempt to try to excel ourselves up to the supreme absolute truth, we will deny the existence of God. I don't see God, where is this God? I don't see it. I'm not able to capture him with my mind, right? But Krishna is actually all things, makes all personalities go downward. All great men, are inferior to Krishna, even the greatest of men in history. And the greatest of men actually are the ones who actually celebrate God. So something to be said about that. Jarasandha said, "It will be a great dishonor for me to fight with boys like Krishna and Balaram." Because Krishna had killed Kamsa, Jarasandha specifically addressed him as the killer of his own relatives. Kamsa had killed so many of his own nephews, yet Jarasandha did not take notice of it. But because Krishna had killed his maternal uncle Kamsa, Jarasandha tried to criticize him. Typical demon, right? They like military, they kind of overlook the faults of the people that they're politically aligned with. And they're like, oh, but you killed so-and-so and you're related to him. Right? That is the way of demoniac dealing. Demons do not try to find their own faults, but try to find the faults of their friends. Jarasandha also criticized Krishna for not even being a Kshatriya. Because he was raised by Maharaj Nanda, Krishna was not a Kshatriya, but a Vaishya. Vaishyas are generally called Guptas, and the word Gupta can also be used to mean hidden. So Krishna was both hidden and raised by Nanda Maharaj. Jarasandha accused Krishna of 3 faults: that he killed his own maternal uncle, that he was hidden in his childhood, and that he was not even a Kshatriya. And therefore Jarasandha felt ashamed to fight with him. Next he turned towards Balaram and addressed him, "You Balaram, if you like, you can fight along with him. And if you have patience, then you can wait to be killed by my arrows. Thus you can be promoted to heaven." It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that a Kshatriya can become benefited in 2 ways while fighting. If a Kshatriya gains victory in the fight, he enjoys the result of victory, but even if he is killed in the fight, he is promoted to the heavenly kingdom. After hearing Jarasandha speak in this way, Krishna answered, "My dear King Jarasandha, those who are heroes do not talk much, rather they show their prowess. Because you are talking much, it appears that you are assured of your death in this battle. We do not care to hear you anymore, because it is useless to hear the words of a person who is going to die or one who is very distressed." It's like typical Kshatriya, they're like, okay, let me, you talk big, but why don't you just show it, right? In order to fight with Krishna, Jarasandha surrounded him from all sides with great military strength, and the sun appeared covered by the cloudy air and dust. Similarly, Krishna, the Supreme Sun, was covered by the military strength of Dhrtarastra. Krishna's and Balaram's chariots were marked with pictures of Garuda and palm trees. The women of Mathura were all standing at the tops of their houses and palaces and gates to see the wonderful fight. But when Krishna's chariot was surrounded by Dhrtarastra's military force, they became so frightened that some of them fainted. Krishna saw himself overwhelmed by the military strength of Dhrtarastra. His small number of soldiers were being harassed by them, so he immediately took up his bow named Shanga. There we go. He began to take his arrows from their case. One after another, he set them on the bowstring and shot them towards the enemy. They were so accurate that the elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers of Dhrtarastra were quickly killed. The incessant arrows thrown by Krishna appeared as a whirlwind of blazing fire, killing all the military strength of Dhrtarastra. As Krishna released his arrows, gradually all the elephants began to fall down, their heads severed by the arrows. Similarly, all the horses fell, and the chariots also, along with their flags. The chariot fighters and the chariot drivers fell as well. Almost all the infantry soldiers fell on the field of battle, their heads, hands, and legs cut off. In this way, many thousands of elephants and horses were killed, and their blood began to flow just like the waves of a river. In that river, the severed arms of men appeared to be snakes, their heads appeared to be tortoises, and the dead bodies of the elephants appeared to be small islands. The dead horses appeared to be sharks. By the arrangement of the supreme will, there was a great river of blood filled with paraphernalia. The hands and legs of the infantry soldiers were floating like seaweed, and the floating bows of the soldiers appeared to be waves of the river. And all the jewelry from the bodies of the soldiers and commanders appeared to be so many pebbles flowing down the river of blood. Ooh. Okay, well, this is a battle that's very exciting, and I think we're going to continue the rest of this battle, and we'll see what happens. Great battles are, this part of the Krishna book, there's a lot of more battles, because Krishna's living in Dwarka and Mathura and more like Kshatriya, kingly sort of pastimes. All right, thank you very much, and let's chant. Justice, keep them. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Okay, that's all for tonight. Make sure you like and subscribe on my channel. Please share these videos that I've been recording on my channel with your friends and family. And we will see you for the next video. Namaste.